Hi, I'm Seamless, and today is Sunday, which normally means it's time for a new How to Synth tutorial, and today I'm going to take this opportunity to just show off the fact that I have analog modular stuff. It's going to be pretty sweet. I apologize for the weird camera angle. There's not really a good way to do this right now, but yeah. So I have the sound that I have so far began to do, which I muted. You can hear the noise. That's the filter doing stuff. Yeah. I'll explain about that in a second. So a couple things about this that are important. Analog stuff is its own world of wackiness. A lot of the parameters, a lot of the things are related to things that we already know about sound design and routing and all that from the digital stuff, because it is all often based on this sort of stuff, but it is a very different universe, and they do react and behave in very different ways. And as much, if you know that, you probably are wondering how I'm controlling anything with an automation clip right now. And it has to do with this whole setup. So this is a pretty complicated patch. It's not that complicated. The sound itself is really not that complicated. It's just basically an ARP. It's a saw, and it's going into an envelope on the volume to make it sound, plucky, and then it's going into a filter, which is being FM'd by this other guy. So this actually looks like this is the main thing. This isn't the main thing. This is the main thing. It's kind of hard to tell, but that's what's up. So I'm actually going to start by basically unpatching all of this, and I'll sort of explain how this is all set up. Just to warn you, this is probably not going to be anything of value unless you are specifically interested in this sort of stuff. This is mostly just a yay kind of moment for me. All right. So here's all the modules as we have so far. This is a make noise DPO. It's particularly awesome. We're not really going to be messing with this a lot. It's particularly epic. This is a Pittsburgh oscillator. We will be messing with this. This is a very basic, normal oscillator, and there's a reason I have that. This is an Expert Sleeper's ES3. This allows me to take out an ADAT output from my audio interface, which is giving me 8 channels of audio that I can control from FL. And that'll become relevant in a second. This is a Doepfer SEM A106 or A106 SEM. It's a filter. It's pretty basic. It's got high pass, low pass, and band pass. This is a 2x envelope. There's just 2 envelopes on here plus a mix. And this is an in-out. Now, I actually originally got this guy because I thought that this is how you had to have these 1/4-inch inputs versus 1/8-inch inputs. And I actually thought this is what you had to have in order to, get audio out of here into a DAW. But as you can see, I can just do that and we can hear it. So there is actually a purpose for this, and I would have just returned it, but I have some cool ideas about that in the future stuff. So let's talk about what it means to use an analog oscillator. Now you notice how when you power it all on, right now it's all powered on, and not a single thing is connected to this, but when I connect this orange cable, which is connecting to my interface, this is how audio is coming into the DAW. You can see here I have input 9, which is the input I'm using, and this is just getting us a saw. Now, I've already tuned this. What I did to tune it is I just played it next to the harmor and just put it and matched up the main frequency wheel and then the fine frequency until it wasn't already nice and in tune. But now I have to control it with pitch. You see I have MIDI going on over there, and it's not going to do anything right now, and that's because nothing is connected to this input up here, which you probably can't tell what it says, but it says 1V. And what that stands for is that's the input that governs the 1 volt per octave pitch control. And the 1 volt per octave is basically saying that for every volt of power, it increases 1 octave of pitch. So with that ratio in mind, you control the amount of power going into it, a level of the signal, then you can control the pitch. That's how pitch is controlled. Now, what I'm doing to control that is that I have this Expert Sleepers thing going on. So let's explain what's going on up here. So I I have two outputs going on here. These are both going to two different channels that have set up outputs my ADAT. So you have ADAT1, ADAT2, and ADAT3 and ADAT4. The number 3 here is just where I sent the thing that I used to tune the thing so that I could hear it was by itself. ADAT1, I'm going to link. Let's just put a saw back in there. Tune you down. ADAT1, I'm going to link to the 1 volt per octave, right? Now it's not doing anything because there's no signal going into ADAT1. So what I'm doing to make signal is that I have this citrus channel, and I've created this flat line up here. And what that is basically just a DC offset. And I achieved that by going to a square waveform and then engaging in the half waveform type here, which just changes it into that. Now when I play it, no tone is going to happen, but it's just going to put out a constant level, as opposed to an oscillating level, which is what we use to generate tone. And I have it routed into these two stereo shapers, so it's setting left and right, which is because ADAT1 and 2 are together stereo channels, so left is 1 and right is 2. And it's going to go into ADAT1. This other guy is also going out to, because I wanted to also control ADAT4 to control pitch for the other guy later, but that's not what we're doing right now. So now, when I play the pattern, you can see a whole bunch of crap happening, a whole bunch of signals going down. And if I just limit it to this guy, we just have pitch. Now you might be wondering why it sounds kind of pitchy, like it's sort of bouncing up and down as opposed to just being even. And that has to do with the quality of the signal coming out of here. And this just has to do with how Citrus does its thing. And they also might be wondering how did it govern? How do I know what's like? How is it tuned? Why is it tuned that way? Now you can see every pitch that's coming out is a different level. That level is what's determining the pitch overall. And I've done that by creating a keyboard mapping that's behind the thing, a keyboard mapping of volume to pitch, like so. So when I play lower keys, it comes out at a lower volume. Now, how did I get this value? How do I know to even make this line? Essentially, I basically just tuned it the way that I did before. I played this note, which is just C, and then I tuned it with something that was also C, like a harmor, and so it goes in tune. And then I played up 1 octave, and I made a line of point up here. And I basically just made the line until this octave and this octave matched, and then everything is just in ratio. There are plugins out there that are designed to just do this. I actually have one of them, and it's called the Expert Sleeper Silent Way. It's actually, in fact, a plugin designed by the people that made this piece of hardware for this express purpose. However, I had some issues getting it to work, and it may or may not have been my fault, but I actually just wanted to see if I could do this without it. Turns out, I totally can. So that's what that's for. And this is also how we are now getting actual, what's called quantized pitch. Now, the next part is that I wanted to give this a pluck, essentially. And I want to do that in volume. So what I'm going to do now is that instead of putting the output to the DAW on this guy, I'm going to put the out on this guy. And then I'm going to put an in from the saw into the thing. Now, right now nothing's happening because it's not being triggered. It has to actually be controlled by something. So normally you have this, there's actually hardware modules for generating control envelopes and that kind of thing, but we're just going to output one. And that's what this guy is doing. Rather, this is what this guy is doing. This is ADAT2. You can see ADAT2 now is lighting up. So I'm going to control this guy up here. See, this input right here says CV. This one says in, this one says out. This says CV. CV stands for control voltage, which is where we're controlling the parameter by reading an input of voltage, of power, of signal. Neat. And now it's doing it. So the two primary parameters here, we have CV, which is controlling essentially how much the CV is influencing the whole thing. And then we have the level, which is just, the level. If I have no CV, And if I had all CV, so it kind of blends between, you know, manual control versus automatic control. Yeah, CV, this guy, level is this guy. So now that's that. So now I wanted to link it to the filter. So now instead of having output come out of here, I'm gonna have output come out of here. And this there's a whole bunch of inputs here. And this one says low pass, high pass out. And there's actually a blend that's between the low pass and high pass filter. I have it on low pass right now. So now I'm gonna have an input from the output rather from the envelope or from the VCA voltage controlled amplifier. Yeah. Is gonna go to the audio in. By default, not doing much because I'm not playing derp. As you may have guessed, this top guy is just the frequency. This down here is the resonance. But I want to do something even better. I want to now automate that filter within FL. That's what this guy's doing. So now the automation actually requires both of these particular guys. It requires this guy and it requires this guy. Now, if you've already basically figured out what I'm doing here, then this part should be pretty easy to guess, which is the idea that I'm actually now going to put out one of those steady levels of amounts, and I'm going to control its volume to determine the level output of the whole thing. You can see now this is putting out a moving signal. Which is being controlled. This is essentially the level. I'm automating the volume of that offset, which is just the line up there, and it's coming out as level. You can also see it glowing on the ADAT3 input over here. So now when I link that input to CV in, so see, this actually says CV1. This top one says CV1. This one says CV2. That's gonna be important in a second. So CV in, number 3. And now I'm actually controlling the ARP's automation with automation in FL. Yay! So what's the CV2 for? Well, this next part is actually more or less the entire reason why I wanted to get into analog stuff at all. There was a lot of neat stuff about this whole idea and just, you know, tactile feel, lots of people keep talking about. But as far as pure functionality go, which is, if you know anything about me, you know that's pretty much what I care about, I really never totally cared about any of that. However, I care about being able to do things you can't do with anything else. And one of the things that you can do with analog hardware that you can't do with anything digital is just FM whatever the hell you want. What I mean by that is that I can take an oscillator from this DPO over here, which I need a longer cable for. Like, say, actually, I guess that cable was long enough. Let's do the square wave output up here and input it into the CV2 input. Now the CV2 input has an attenuator control up here. And the attenuator essentially just controls how much this is affecting the position of the filter. Because now we have CV1 that's just automating it. And we have CV2, which is now FMing on top of that. What it means is that you can kind of imagine it. Actually, I can show you the direct visual representation of what's about to happen. If you look at this line as being the primary automation, the FM I'm about to do kind of FMs it on top of it. And then the attenuator determines how hard that FM is relative to the main automation. That's what we're about to do with CV2. And let me get that sound, which is that's essentially the sound of the filter being FM'd. Even with there's no sound being plugged in there, that generates audio. In fact, some filters can self-oscillate if you push the resonance too hard. I don't think this one can, though. Now, what I have done here with this secondary output into this, which is the ADAT3 and 4. So ADAT3, thank you, Facebook. ADAT3 is controlling the main automation for this, but I actually want to also control the pitch of this guy to be tuned essentially with this guy. Not because I want it to have the same FM, but because I want the character of each note to be more or less the same, essentially for it to be the same relative to itself. This is usually accomplished in digital FM just by having a ratio controlled pitch system. So I'm taking 8.4 and I'm plugging into the 1 volt per octave input pitch control of the second oscillator of the DPO. The DPO actually has 2 different oscillators, and they help do a whole bunch of internal stuff, which is a lot of sweet coolness. Calm down, camera. Now if I play it, so that was almost the same pitch. So yeah, that's how this whole thing came to be. That was a lot of information, and if you want to learn more about analog modular synthesis, there are actually YouTube channels out there that are entirely about the basics of how all this work. And unlike most of the time when I'm saying like, oh yeah, there's other tutorials about stuff, I actually know that for a fact that there are some, and that's honestly how I've learned most of this. A lot of it, like I said, a lot of it is similar enough to what you know about regular like digital sound design, since honestly a large portion of digital sound design is based on how some of this stuff works. It's similar enough in that regard that a lot of what you expect to happen would if you know enough about what you're doing, but there's also just so much of it that is its own thing that, like, also a lot of similar words that don't really mean the same thing anymore. Like wave shapers, they do shape the waveforms, but they don't work in the way that we expect wave shapers to work. And like the idea of quantizing being a pitch term as opposed to a beat term, and gates and CV and all that good stuff, and just so much stuff that make up what this is. But it is really very powerful, and I absolutely look forward to making this work, especially since now that I've gotten a pretty okay handle on getting internal control to work with it, just in FL stuff, because I wasn't super looking forward to working with the Silent Wave thing. Although that's what it's called, the plugin. The plugin's called Silent Wave. The actual control that I got out of trying to get this to work with just pitch control, that kind of stuff, was kind of a pain in the ass. But there's a whole bunch of other stuff that it can do that's actually very cool that I might actually absolutely need to have in future things that I end up trying to use. Like, yeah. So if you have any questions about this, join the club. But feel free to ask anyway. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all this good stuff. And as usual, have a nice day.